Number 7. Richard Jones. Richard Jones was released from prison in 2017 after serving 17 years out of a 19-year-long sentence for aggravated robbery. He was convicted for stealing a woman's purse in a Walmart parking lot in Kansas City in 1999. Investigators found no DNA evidence or fingerprints connected Jones to the crime, and he had provided them with an alibi. He was at his girlfriend's house at the time, which she would attest to. Despite no physical evidence to support their claims, Jones was still given a guilty charge, solely based on 2 eyewitness accounts. A decade after the crime, Jones found out about fellow inmate Ricky Amos, for which he was frequently mistaken. He passed the information on to the Midwest Innocence Project and the School of Law at the University of Kansas, who used the tip to help overturn his wrongful conviction. They completely discredited the eyewitnesses, including the victim of the robbery on whom the whole case had rested, when none of them could distinguish between Jones and Amos. As the statute of limitation had passed, Amos was never charged for the crime. Jones gained his well-earned freedom at the age of 42 and was compensated $1.1 million. Number 6. Chad Gordon. In May of 2020, a 27-year-old autistic man described as a gentle giant by his friends and family was shot and killed point blank at his home in Haringey, North London. The victim, Chad Gordon, died at the scene and was found by his aunt, who was home with him at the time. The gunman, 19-year-old Mason Sani Semedo and 20-year-old Cameron Robinson, had traveled to his house on a stolen moped, which they ditched and set aflame in the Walthamstow marshes after the attack. Although unconfirmed in court by the shooters, it was determined as a revenge attack due to escalating tensions between 2 groups in the area. A friend of theirs had been stabbed 5 days prior, and it's believed their intended target was Gordon's next-door neighbor. Both men were sentenced to a minimum of 29 years in prison for possession of a gun with intent to inflict bodily harm and for murder. Number 5. Jordi Latu Mohina. Amsterdam DJ Jordi Latu Mohina was gunned down in his apartment's parking garage on October the 8th of 2016. He was sitting in his car with his girlfriend and 2-year-old daughter when 2 men approached out of nowhere and opened fire on them. Their daughter survived unscathed, with a bullet just grazing past her car seat in the back, but Latu Mohina was killed and his girlfriend left in critical condition. An immediate investigation led to the arrest of 7 individuals in what the authorities believe to be a case of mistaken identity. It is thought that they were after drug criminal Gino M., who lived in the same building and drove the same Mini as Latu Mohina. The men were sentenced to up to 30 years on various charges in 2018, with the gunman and coordinator receiving the longest sentences. In May of 2021, a further accomplice was tracked down and apprehended in Spain in connection with the crime after evidence of communication between him and the coordinator was discovered. The man was arrested on suspicion of orchestrating the hit on Gino, and thus Latu Mohina, after messages obtained by the authorities pointed to his involvement in coordinating payments and delivering the final murder command. Number 4. Alfonso Bennett. In 2019, Alfonso Bennett's family was contacted by the Chicago police to say that he had been admitted to the hospital after being found beaten close to death. Adhering to the advice of the police and doctors, after some time, the family took him off life support at Mercy Hospital and moved him into hospice care. The move proved to be too much, and within 3 days, he died. Grieving, his family began to plan his funeral, when to the surprise of everyone, he showed up alive and well at a friend's barbecue. Having been traveling out of state for a time, the real Alfonso had been completely unaware of his own purported passing. When the badly beaten man had first been discovered, police identified him using mugshots. Despite his severely injured face, they were confident in the match. Family members of Alfonso, who'd gone to the hospital, didn't share the police's confidence and had insisted the man didn't look like him, but were repeatedly reassured otherwise. Hospital staff told them they were in denial because of the difficult situation and dismissed them completely. But faced with a live Alfonso, police returned to the body and correctly identified the man as 68-year-old Elisha Brittman using fingerprint identification. Both Brittman and Bennett's families described the experience as traumatic and banded together to sue the city and hospital in what they believe was an easily avoidable situation. Had police followed proper protocol, their suit argued that Elisha Brittman died at least in part due to the hospital pushing the medical life-altering decisions of a person onto people who had no authority to make them. 5 individuals lodged a suit and asked for $50,000 each in compensation. Number 3. Eddie Clark III. Eddie Clark III was chased down and murdered by a family of 4 while driving near his Houston area home in May of 2021. The family, made up of 19-year-old Joe Argueta, his mother, his father, and his uncle, boxed Clark's car in as he slowed down near their house. Clark was caught on security footage trying to speed off screen as Joe and his uncle pursued on foot with a gun and bat in hand. In the footage, sound of Clark crashing into a tree can be heard as Joe fires shots at his car. Clark attempted to flee on foot, but only made it a block away, where his body was found. The Argueta family told investigators that they had devised a plan to lay in wait that night to take care of a person that had been vandalizing their home. They suspected it was a friend of Joe's ex-girlfriend who drove a black Dodge Charger. Clark also owned a Dodge, a very similar-looking dark silver Challenger. Joe admitted to carrying a gun and shooting multiple times at the car. Authorities put it down to a case of mistaken identity, and all 4 were charged with murder. Today's topic was requested by #1 original trilogy Star Wars fan. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Timothy Davidson. Maine native Timothy Davidson was driving back home from a vacation in Florida on January the 4th of 2014 when he was followed and rammed off the road by an unknown truck. In an attempt to skip city traffic, he had taken Interstate 81, an alternative route through the Appalachian Mountains. As he drove through Maryland, he noticed a blue Ford Ranger truck following him, which he tried to lose with growing concern. Davidson called the police when whoever was in the truck began to fire shots at his car, but the call was dropped as he entered Pennsylvania. He wasn't able to contact the police again until his car had been run off into a snowbank. In his final moments, he begged the dispatcher to hurry up before footsteps and ringing gunshots echoed on the other end of the call. Davis had no known ties or enemies in the area, and the case of his murder went cold for the next year and a half. It took the death of a completely unrelated woman and a subsequent tip for police to identify a connection to John Wayne Strawser Jr., who they suspected attacked Davidson after misidentifying his car. The couple who called in the tip believed the attack was intended for them, as it had occurred on the same route they were supposed to take after a run-in with Strawser. Strawser had been stalking the woman in the duo after a short-lived affair, and he had a track record of threats, abuse, and violence. The night of Davidson's murder, the couple had run into Strawser in a bar, an interaction which had ended with him threatening to kill the husband. They drove a mid-sized silver SUV similar to Davidson's, and like him, had decided to take an alternative route to avoid Interstate 81. The decision potentially saved their lives. Investigators matched the unique shell casings found in Davidson's car to a gun ditched in a swamp by Strawser's home. Cell phone records showed that he was located within range of the murder scene. Strawser also owned a blue Ford Ranger that had been painted black. While on trial, he said he couldn't remember if he'd shot Davidson, but said he had been at work that night, a statement which his employer swiftly declared untrue. Strawser was sentenced to first-degree murder and life in prison. Number 1. Nicholas Barkley and Frederick Bourdain. In 1994, 13-year-old Nicholas Barkley from Texas went missing after playing basketball with his friends in a neighborhood park. Nicholas was a troubled teen who had repeatedly clashed with his family and the authorities in the past. Assuming he had run away to avoid an upcoming court hearing, the alarm wasn't raised for over a day, and by that time very little information regarding his whereabouts could be found. For the next 3 years, the only potential evidence of his survival was a 911 call from his uncle, who reported he was trying to break into his garage. He fled before the police showed up and the case went cold until the Barkleys received a surprising phone call from Spain claiming that their son had been found in a youth shelter in Linares. The daughter of the family flew out to Spain to identify him, and after he passed the test, she brought him back home to Texas to rejoin the rest of the family. The teen claimed he'd been kidnapped after the basketball game and sent on a flight to Europe, where he was forced into a human trafficking ring. The Barkleys immediately accepted the story and welcomed him with open arms. Despite the family's quick acceptance of the boy, extended family members and reporters following the story became suspicious of the stark contrast of his features and temperament. Nicholas was a young, blonde-haired boy with blue eyes and a hot temper. The boy in front of them had dark hair, dark eyes, and a demure, unsettling presence. The inconsistencies were too blatant for private investigator Charlie Parker, who had been present during the filming of the grand reunion. His investigative efforts led to a court-ordered DNA test, and after 3 months and a half, the boy's true identity was revealed. Not only was he not a teenager, he was actually a 23-year-old French criminal by the name of Frederick Bourdain. Known as the Chameleon, he was suspected of being involved in over 500 cases of stolen identity, often those of children. Bourdain was charged and sentenced to 6 years in prison, but left his own suspicions on the matter. Based on his experience with the family, he believed they must have had something to do with their son's death. Despite outing Bourdain initially, investigator Charlie Parker agreed with his suspicions but never found substantial evidence to corroborate the claims. Thanks for watching. Would you rather wake up in a psych ward with no identity or be convicted of a crime you didn't commit? Let us know in the comments section below.